Hey everyone. Okay, you've tuned into our Well Balanced Mondays discussions. I'm the host, the tour guide. It is October 3rd, 2022. At any point in time you're consuming this content, I can only hope you're doing well. Thank you for choosing to spend your valuable time with us. So, we're going through our book, Prayer, Faith, and Healing, and this segment is going to be specifically about Alzheimer's. That's what the book is going to be focusing on. I am also going to include any other type of developmental delays, any type of brain injury, or some type of physical handicap as a result to accident, by chance, or some type of injury. So the reason why I'm bringing all of that up into this category is, well, I went through the book, didn't see anything specifically about that subject of disabilities. So I decided, you know what, it kind of makes sense for any person who's offering care, love, and support to a person who is dealing with some of these life trials. Just wanted to include everyone into that discussion for today. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I am the host, the tour guide, and let us get into our discussion. Okay, so let's talk about this. Essentially, the book says that 80% of caregivers of Alzheimer's patients, or any type of caregiver assisting someone with a developmental delay or some kind of handicap or disability, they experience high stress levels, and more than half of them experience depression symptoms. Surprisingly, 20% have admitted they are in fear of hurting a parent due to their level of frustration. So, those with the disease, through time, they may experience memory loss, um, and worsening ability to think, understand, or make decisions. They also commonly exhibit signs of agitation, can be aggressive, also experiencing depression for themselves, and are likely to wander off as a result of the disease. So, that's coming from page 156. Sharon Fish, RN and PhD, she shares her experience caring for her mother as being extremely difficult. And she says, quoted, "I remember the time when she first called me mom, and then another time I became grandma as her dementia became worse. She actually saw me as a different person and not as her daughter anymore." So that's coming from Dr. Sharon Fish. So, Reverend Herman Riffle, he shares his story about caring for his wife of 55 years and expressing not getting into a position where you're gritting your teeth from frustration. And then also the importance of showing love, and very, very importantly, showing God's love through this entire process. So here they have a handful of really good tips and tools and talking points and just different sources to help you cope with the circumstances surrounding for being a primary caregiver. So they really, really highly recommend. Again, the book is called Prayer, Faith, and Healing. So the power of prayer. They say find faith. So researchers in Indiana University School of Nursing, they recognize caregivers who had their spiritual needs met and attended church services had a better well-being and less stress. Dr. Fish shares the same sentiment. She was saying that initially, when she first got the diagnosis of her mother's Alzheimer's, she was extremely angry with God, and a lot of people are, understandably so. It's very, very life-changing, and for some people, earth-shattering. So she was reunited to God, and she felt the love, and that was in part due to finding a really, really good church family that really was able to help accommodate the needs of her mother. She was saying that he was my strength in all of this. Another important thing to consider is encouraging the family to help pitch in. So, to be honest though, not everyone is best suited to be a primary caregiver. There's lots of reasons why it's difficult to be the primary person to offer the care. So it's important to take into account of every person in the family and how they can utilize resources and help and offer assistance. So this is also very important to note. If we're reluctant to offer assistance, this is coming from Reverend Riffle, and he reminds us, if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for his immediate family, He has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. And that reference is from 1 Timothy 5:8. So if anyone wants to check that out, I'd encourage you to do that. It's coming from page 155. Let me show you a copy of the book. Again, sorry for the people on podcast, but Prayer, Faith, and Healing, it's available. I know for sure. I've seen it on Amazon. I'm sure you can get it used, but so reference for that, if you're upset with the verse, it's 1 Timothy 5:8, and that's on page 155, coming from that book, if you have. So if you're available to help your families, I would encourage you to do so. Okay, so search for a good church. So Dr. Sharon Fish continues to say that the church that she found a great home in for her family, they had an elderly ministry, and that was also connected to a local nursing home. And she said they had a lot of the supplies available on hand, oxygen tanks, comfortable chairs for the residents to use. So very accommodating. Another tidbit they have is to ask the church for help. So believe it or not, some churches, they do offer small groups for divorced people. They also have, substance abuse recovery programs. So if there isn't a support group for Alzheimer's caregivers or any caregiver in general who takes care of family members who need a lot of assistance due to just physical disabilities, mental, it's important to get the support group. And as I mentioned this, I didn't put it in my notes, but it's always in the back of my mind. I read this book called, I think it's called Postcards to God. It's by Dwayne Parrish. He's a pastor. And he experienced a severe, I'm not sure if it was an aneurysm or some type of brain injury, and he needed to have surgery. So he had actual brain surgery, and it took him longer than he expected or anticipated to recover. And he remembers that in his mind, he was completely crystal clear in his thoughts. He was alert, he was attuned, he knew what was going on, he could think clearly. It was his body that was having the physical limitations and disabilities. He gave an example where they were giving him quizzes, simple elementary type math, like 2 + 2 is 4. He knew the answer. In his head, he knew the answer, but it was his body that gave the answer 5. And everyone on the outside looking in is like, they're confused. They're like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, he's not. And he's getting the confused stares. He can't catch up with his speech. He has the thoughts in his head, but his body is just not connecting the neurons or whatever. So he expressed feeling like he was trapped in his own body. And I'm just wondering how many people out there do we just assume, oh, this person has special needs, or they're disabled, or dare I use the R word, very offensive to some people, I understand. So a lot of times from our perspective, we may assume this person doesn't have it, but we don't really know what's going on internally. So we need to be extremely patient with people who are in these conditions, because there's a lot of neurological connections, and there's a lot that takes place that I think even myself, fully abled bodies take for granted. We really don't take into account the importance or what the human body actually does to keep us functioning. Everything is perfectly connected, and it's not until we're unable to do things that we realize the severe importance of some of these abilities that we're given. So never take anything for granted, and be very, very grateful, appreciative, and humble, and also extremely patient for those who are experiencing some of these disabilities on their side. So a lot of support needs to be going out to the caregivers. A lot of love and praise to you, and prayers to you through this period in your life. So continuing on though, definitely if churches have any type of Alzheimer's caregiver support group, or any type of support group, people dealing with developmental or physical disabilities, definitely would encourage people to look into that. So Wilford Wooten, he's a licensed family therapist and director of counseling for Focus on the Family. I don't know if he still is, because this book's over a decade old, but it says, he expresses, You know, the biblical mandate for churches to help the destitute, this falls into that category. Unfortunately, a lot of people are actually too embarrassed to ask for help. That's on page 157. So it is difficult to reach out and say, I need help. And if you're aware of someone that has a family member that's going through some hardships or needs a lot of care, to consider finding ways to reach out, respectfully and delicately, as always. All right, so also what we can do is help them worship at home. Again, this book was written before they had live streams and Zoom calls and video conferences. So it's kind of cute looking through some of the suggestions. They're talking about going through the TV stations and finding some type of, spiritual TBN type network that has religious television 24 hours. Thanks be to God for the internet and live streaming. So you can bring church into the household, but also we can go old school, and I would encourage pastors to try to do in-home services and visit people. And I'm sure a lot of them already do, but for the ones that are not aware of this need, or if there's not a ministry already established, would be a great option to have devotions or bringing communion to people to their homes and trying to really, really have the in-person connections. Very, very important if you're not able to have it in the church. Also, she says, this is coming from Dr. Fish, the importance of leaning on friends. So if you, again, are aware of someone that has something going on with a disability, she says, allow friends to get groceries or run errands. On 156, she has a quote saying, if we are friends of someone who is caring for an Alzheimer's patient, we should understand that this is the best time to pitch in. And a scriptural reference from Proverbs 27:10 says, better a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. So again, find ways to reach out to your friends. Be patient. So Reverend Riffle, he shares one. His patience is short with his wife because in the book it goes into detail that she wasn't the type of Alzheimer's patient who would kind of shrink into herself. She was the one who wanted to be active and redecorate things and hide things or misplace things or wake up in the middle of the night to go to an event or something, not knowing what time it was or what day of the week it was. So he was sharing that it's kind of hard to be tough on someone else when we ourselves recognize how many times we have failed. And he uses this opportunity to pray specifically with her. And a lot of people who were believers, they were saying also with the finding the faith. It's interesting though. An ex of mine has mentioned working in nursing homes and shared that a lot of the individuals who have lost their short-term memory, who don't recognize their family members, can't even know, they don't know what day of the week it is or how old they are or where they're at. If you start singing hymns and Christian songs or reciting the Bible, the vast majority of them will immediately pick it up. They're like, oh yeah, that's, or they'll say things like, oh yeah, my friend is Jesus. They may not know who their daughter is or who you are or what day it is, but they overwhelmingly, the majority of them know who Jesus is. And they're like, oh, let me tell you about my friend Jesus, or, and it doesn't matter, what stage of their mental decline is. It's interesting to notate that they know who Jesus is. So that's a great way to bring comfort to them. And the importance of praying and not to get overwhelmed. This is the important things of having a spiritual foundation. A lot of people call Christians or any type of religious group, whatever your faith background is, I need to emphasize this. A lot of people who are theist or atheist or agnostic think that believers are weak. And, I'm okay saying that because I don't have to rely on my own strength, and I have no shame in saying that. Yeah, so what? We weren't supposed to do it alone. That wasn't what the Creator... Again, if you go into the intricate, delicate system of the human body, we get a lot of... I don't understand why people give so much praise and credit to technology. And they don't realize that their brains are the most amazing supercomputer there is. We are electrical beings. When you're first conceived, there's a spark of light. It starts with electrical synapses. So for you to give credit, oh yeah, let me talk to Alexa and have her turn on the lights. I always joke and tell people God's like, oh, that's so cute. They figured out how to turn the lights on talking to a computer, when God's like, I spoke an entire world into existence. It's like we weren't supposed to be here alone. Um, Having some type of isolation is some of the worst forms of torture. The majority of human beings were not designed to live exclusively alone. We are social creatures and social beings. And even with animals, we have a strong connection. They've been able to pick up connections with plants and living things. We are connected to something greater than ourselves. Go watch the movies Avatars, and if you don't want to listen to the God talk or the Jesus talk, but I think it's universally agreed that we're connected to something, and we were not designed to do this alone. So that's one of the reasons why people pray. And again, this book specifically talks about the phenomenon of having recovery and better results and better health outcomes due to prayer. Even if the person is not aware that they're being prayed for, there has been significant improvements with patients who received intercessory prayer. If you look into mindfulness and meditation and manifestation stuff, a lot of the information is going to overlap. There's something more to us than just the physical. So when we talk about healing, again, you're getting in tune with something. So you want to call it weak? I feel bad for you, because there's nothing weak about this. This is some powerful stuff. And we've heard some miraculous stories. That pastor who had that injury experienced full recovery. I believe in the power of prayer. I'm praying for people to also experience recovery as well. And myself personally has experienced significant improvements in health and mental issues. This is why I do the Well Balanced Mondays discussions. If I did not believe it, trust me, I wouldn't be wasting your valuable time here sharing the content with you. So, continuing on though, the importance of prayer. He was going on to say that he has discovered that his wife is following directions of voices inside of her head. He offers prayers and allows God to offer aid in these circumstances. So we also need to remember it's important to have fun together, okay? So it takes work and creativity, but find simple solutions to cultivate moments that bring joy to the family. So I don't have any specific suggestions, but again, it takes creativity and time. Find a craft. I'm personally really biased. If anyone knows anything about me, the tour guide, Jenna, she absolutely loves aquariums, and it's fun to create little ecosystems in different worlds underwater, and it's very therapeutic and relaxing. It helps to lower cholesterol and stress levels, so considering putting in an aquarium together. So gain strength from the Psalms. Again, going back to God's word and the importance of reading the Bible. David, he did struggle with a lot of many changing emotions, and he captured them in his writings. So, and he's able to describe varying trials. Page 158, Dr. Fish states, reading them helped me identify my own emotions and to be more honest and open with them, with God. Believe it or not, God can take your yelling. You can yell at him. You can vent your frustrations at him. You can, I don't know why this is happening to me. Like, he wants to hear it. I mean, for one, he already knows. But two, it's kind of like, instead of you keeping it inside your house, your house, your body, your mind, keeping it trapped, it's easier just to vent out your frustrations and allow him to minister to you once you become vulnerable and say, I need your help. Because it's like, you can sit here and scream and cry all you want, but unless you actually direct it to the person who can offer you assistance, you're going to suffer silently. It's better just to give it out to him fully. It's freeing and liberating, and it's better for your health. And the outcomes, a lot of Christians testify that, it's a lot easier when you just give it to God. And I can attest to that. Thanks be to God. That's why I'm here talking about it. Okay, speaking of talking about it, the next one is talk through it. So a lot of marriages and other relationships may struggle while caring for a family member. So make plans early on discuss some of the hard things, the insurances, the payments, scheduling, different types of support from the family, who can come this time, what are we going to do for holidays. Get it all out, hash it out, just accept the fact that this is going to be a tough challenge and talk it out. Don't keep the emotions, don't keep the communication to yourself. If you need help from a pastor, a counselor, a family member, do so, because this is why the book was written. To either, if you're already going through it, or you may eventually go through it, it's good to have the information. And this is mental preparation is huge in coping with these things. So make plans early on, seek support, and keep the lines of communication open. All right, so know where to go for help. Look up possible resources for help, supports from local nursing homes. Some nursing homes offer programs, even if your family member is not a resident in that home. They'll host different type of activities. So look into that, find it, research it. You don't have to do it alone. We weren't meant to do this alone. And I have to remind myself this as well. You're not supposed to do it alone. That's why they have community support groups. So thank you for all those community support groups. All right, so remember to care for ourselves, the caregivers. You need to get out as well, if possible. If you are unable to, this is why the importance of prayer and meditation is so crucial, and breathing techniques. You can do a lot of things at home from where you're at. It's very, very important to take care of yourself. The book cites that, interestingly enough, a lot of people who are caregivers actually sometimes get worse health outcomes, or they end up experiencing death due to the stress for caring for a patient with Alzheimer. So it's very important to take care of yourself. Getting sleep, exercise, right food, and some outings. So roll with the changes. You're going to have to be flexible. Expect it to be difficult. But again, the mental preparation is really what helps you get through the challenges, to know what your resources are, know where your support system is coming from, get in touch with your pastor, church members. This is, again, the preparation will help save you in the long run. Okay, so also sometimes the decline is slow and gradual, and sometimes the decline could be rapid with steep decline. So being mentally and emotionally prepared is the key that helped Dr. Fish, she shares. So let's get real. Quote, when an older person's caring for a loved one, the person without Alzheimer's may give out quicker than the person with it. So we need to be realistic about our limitations and listen to others who may be more aware of our limits. On page 159, the questions are, we need to consider, is the loved one safe at home? And is caring for the loved one in harmony or in causing any harm to our own personal health? Very difficult questions to ask, but you need to consider them. Okay, so remember to remind them of the love. Tell the people that you're caring for that you love them, even if they don't quite understand. Just keep saying it. Until I came to the Lord and began to see things from His perspective, I thought this was a burden. But after that, I felt like it was a privilege, even though there were really, really difficult, hard times. And that's from Dr. Fish. So if you remember the love that God has for us, how many times we've failed Him, how many times we've failed other people, and how many times He forgives us and loves us, keep that cultivated close to your heart. If you had a rough relationship with your family member that you're caring for, this is why getting into the Word and studying God's Word is so important, because the forgiveness aspect is also the most freeing and liberating. Time on earth is temporary. This is why we need to reach out to those loved ones, our friends, the church. We weren't supposed to do this alone. And there needs to be a lot of healing. So this might be the last opportunity you get to fix things. So I want just to encourage anyone who's going through these trials in life right now. Like Dr. Fish shared, initially to her it was a burden, but then it came out to be a privilege So I hope and pray that anyone who's going through some hardships right now will have a change of heart and a new perspective and see it as an opportunity to serve. And please reach out to people in the churches. And churches, please open up and consider different types of ministries that you can take to support caregivers. So with that, I've been your host, the tour guide. At any point you're consuming this, I can only hope you're doing well. Thanks so much for tuning in, and as always, God's peace.